we're here with John Slattery, co-writer and sole director of God's Pocket.
Sole director.
Sole director. Well, do you know how many dual directing teams there are these days?
I don't.
It's a trend.
Is it?
Yeah, but you've not joined it.
Well, Lance Accord, who shot the movie, is a director, and I mean, he hasn't directed a feature, but he's directed a lot of other stuff, and he'd have some pretty strong ideas. I would almost call him a co-director.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's the best.
He's great. Spike Jonze stuff.
Oh, the best. I mean, and to have him on a set with you is like, we should all be so lucky.
Yeah. Well, tell me how this came to you. You adapted a novel.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
I read Paris Trout first, which was a famous book that Pete Dexter wrote. And then I wanted to read his other books, and he's written a bunch of great novels. This was his first. And I finished it, and I really thought, wow, this would make a good film. And this is like 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
So I was in no real position to make that happen. I tried to get the rights. Didn't happen. Forgot about it. 5 years later, somebody reminded me, whatever happened to that book you liked so much? And I re-investigated, heard the rights were available, wrote a draft, because I had written a not so good screenplay in between and didn't want to do that again. So I kind of thought, well, let me outline it, see if it works. And then I did that. It worked as well as I had thought it would. Called up, said, let's go and try and get this. And they said, oh, we made a mistake. The same people still own it. So they said, well, so what? So I just started writing it anyway. And I wrote it for a couple of years, when I was doing something else. And then, we worked out the rights situation.
Why this? What was so resonant to you?
There's a humanity to this community of people, which I think every probably community has, if you dig deep enough. A neighborhood of people, obviously focusing on 1, 2, 3, 4 people who are real enough to express what they need to express to get what they need done, but they're not going to give you the whole deck of cards, like people would do. And the sort of economic strata they're in interested me. They don't have a lot of money, which makes everything like they don't have time to screw around. They need what they need. They live kind of hand to mouth. They're smart. They might not be educated, but they're really smart. They're funny as a result of that intelligence. And the whole thing adds up to people who are prepared to go to lengths that most people aren't. Whether it be violence or skirting the law, and also can express a funny thought, a complex funny thought, and also have big hearts and deep emotions, not necessarily that which they wear on their sleeves. The whole thing I just loved everyone in the book. And they were so evocative and so specific and so well written that I thought, I don't have to do anything. I could just literally suck this right out of the book, which I did.
Yeah. You put together this amazing cast of actors, like real actors.
Yeah.
Can you characterize them in a way? Is there a certain sort of actor that you appreciate that they all kind of...
I mean, when I read the book, I pictured people like Robert Mitchum and Lee Marvin and directors like Robert Altman or Peter Yates, the Friends of Eddie Coyle, and the simple. These people are presences. They know who they are. They have weight, and they know they have weight, and they have humor, and they don't have to press anything too hard. John Turturro, Richard Jenkins, Christina Hendricks, Philip, Eddie Marzan, all down the line. These people are. I found, and then Susan Shopmaker, the casting director, helped me find, a load of other New York actors. She's amazing, and some of them are like ex-cops, and some of them are actors, and some of them are actors who used to do this and that, and I just wanted I wanted the people to create the world. Yeah. Preston Sturges would do that. They would use like an ensemble of people, and oftentimes repeat, usage of the same people, but it was. The Lady Eve or something like, where you have Henry Fonda and Barbara Stanwyck and surrounded by these actors that create the world that these sort of heavenly creatures move around in, and that was sort of what I set out to do.
Did you ever consider jumping in and playing yourself, or you were never going to act?
No, I mean, I was asked, are you is that what your intention? And every time I said no, they were like, that's a good idea. You know, it's just too much of an undertaking I mean, I've done it on Mad Men a bunch of times, and it's not easy, and it takes up a lot of time to try to do both things at the same time. My hat's off to, you know, everybody that does. Warren Beatty and Woody Allen and Ben Affleck and, you know, those guys. I don't know how the hell they do that.
Is it very hard to judge yourself when you do?
Well, you know, I mean, it's never pleasant to look at yourself, you know, aging by the minute. But I'm over that, you know. I mean, I've directed myself enough to see all that stuff and get over that. It's just the time it takes. It's in the sort of bifurcation of focus. You know, you're trying to figure out how to set it up and shoot it, and what to say to the other people, and acting at the same time. It's
How do you work with actors? Have you found it reflects the way you like being worked with yourself, or when you start becoming a director and taking on that hat, do you start seeing why directors do annoying things?
Well, no. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of kinds of direction. Some mysterious, some great, some crystallizingly great, some, you know, a lot of talking and no, you know, and you know, ineffectual blather, you know. So I didn't want to do that. You know, I didn't want to. I don't think people can really take too many thoughts and then execute them. You know, you tell somebody, an actor, you might tell them one thing, maybe two things, and then how many, you know, and they might be able to do it. You start piling on, like, and here you should, and then over here, you're going to get a scene, you're going to get a take where someone's playing notes. It'll take you another take to get what you want, and you'll have to piece the two pieces together. You know, and then you have actors like I had, and, you know, there's not that much you have to tell John Turturro. You know, I mean, he's read the script. He knows and he said yes. Right. So there's a reason. So he gets it. Right. And Phil and all of them, and Richard Jenkins, and, you know, I mean, these guys. So then you're watching them, and then it's just adjusting. You go, well, here's somebody that can do. I mean, I can literally ask this guy to do almost anything, and he can do it. And then you go, well, what makes sense, and what? So it's really adjusting and working with them and seeing what they think. How do you feel about that? Should we try it this way a little bit, just in case, or what makes sense? Because sometimes tonally, you know, this movie is a tricky tone. You know, it's funny and it's violent and it's heartbreaking and it's funny again, or you know, so it isn't one thing all the way through, on purpose. The book isn't either. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, you know, you want to create the bedrock reality of these people. They are who they are. They're convincingly who they are. So that when it gets heightened, you know, dragging the body around, the Sophie shooting a couple guys, whatever, that you believe it because that's who they are. So it's so tonally you adjust. You know, you try one this way. You go, you know, maybe it'll work better this way. Let's try that, and see how everybody feels. You know.
Do you remember one of the great directing lessons you got from someone? Or it could even be the worst experience that gave you a lesson.
I had I had one director once when I was a kid, you know, and I was working really hard at some scene. Let me try one more time. And it was like I was trying to perfect some idea I had in my head. And he goes, "Why? You've taken all the life out of it." And I realized that, in fact, he was right. You know, you work so hard, there's no humanity in it. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to say what I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to, you know, and that's all bullshit. You know, actors like Phil Hoffman, the experience of the scene, the event of the scene, whatever you're doing, happens to me, happens to him on film. He has this, I mean, aside from the gift he has emotionally and technically and all that, but the gift of knowing where the camera is, and knowing that the important thing is to make the event happen when the camera's on, not when the camera's off sitting in your trailer, you know, and yeah, I mean, so you just basically turn the camera on sometimes and stand back and tell everybody to shut up, and watch what this guy's going to do.
Well, what sort of research did you do, and did you encourage them to do, or were they really they were doing their own thing? And
You know, Richard particularly was like, I'm not a big rehearser. I'm not into rehearsal that much. I just like to show up and do it, which is, that's again, if the camera's turned off, it doesn't matter what happens. If you turn the camera on, that's it. That's when you want it to be good. And he would just as soon sit down and play the scene, and then do another one, and I feel that when I'm acting, I like that too. It's just like, let's just take a whack at it, and if you don't like it, then don't use it. But they were all, everybody works differently, and you have to be able to listen to people and try to and figure out what they need and why it isn't working for them, and whatever indulgence they need to feel safe. And you need to encourage people, because being on the other end of it, when someone comes in the room and they're like, and they're scratching their head, you think, oh shit, I screwed it up. As opposed to, as simply as, that was great, we have that, let's try this. And you go, oh, your shoulders drop, because you're like, okay, we got a usable take, the heat's off, now we can mess around a little bit. We have, there are finite deadlines, you got to get the scene done in a certain amount of time, and
Yeah. Mad Men has such a specific grammar style established. The camera shoots from a certain place. Obviously, you learned it.
Right up your face.
Right up. It's a low angle.
It's a young person's angle.
Which what Phil Abraham.
The older I get, the
started.
goddamn Phil Abraham.
So, having directed within those confines,
Yeah.
now stepping out, was this a relief? And you had Lance, obviously, to help.
Yeah.
Establishing your own voice.
I have a pretty visual sense of things. I guess that's why I liked films in the first place. So my sense of communication is very sort of pictorial. You have Lance and you go, well, here's how I see it. I didn't have a problem saying, here's how I see it. And I don't have a problem. Because I haven't done this very long, the directing, that is, so I'm okay with saying, okay, well, here's how I see it. Is this stupid or is this possible? And someone will say, well, that's great, but if we do that, it won't cut with, whatever. Somebody more adept will tell you yes or no.
Congratulations. Good luck
Thank
this
you.
week.
Thanks
so
a
much
lot,
for
man.
coming by.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. John Slattery, Godspeed.